To understand how the price of the factors of production is determined, we must begin by grasping a few essential preliminary concepts. Take good note, all of you. First, a specific factor of production is one which can be used in only one particular line of production. Second, in contrast, we will define a non-specific factor of production as one which is useful in several different lines of production. In other words, a non-specific factor of production is versatile. One of the most typical examples of such a factor is the labor factor. Believe it or not, your professor can do quite a few things, though I am better at some than at others. For instance, I can teach economics. I can also sweep and clean a house, and change a baby's diaper. I'm not very good at that last one, though. The smell makes me queasy, and I keel over. I am pretty clumsy and hopeless at it. But one of the special characteristics of human beings, men and women, is that we are very rarely a specific factor, able to do only one particular task. There are extreme cases, but most of us can do different kinds of things, though we do some better than others. It is true that we probably like and feel drawn to certain fields, and find certain types of work easier than others, but we can do different things. Well, the third concept we will introduce is that of an isolable factor of production. An isolable factor of production is one which can be separated from the others involved in production. I say this because in different situations in the market, we encounter specific factors of production, which can be used for only one thing. And in other situations we encounter, and this is our fourth concept, non-isolable factors of production, which must always be accompanied by other factors in order to fulfill their productive function. For instance, consumers view the Spanish comedy duos Cruz and Raya, Martes and Trece, and Tip and Col as single units, and their members as non-isolable factors of production. Cruz could conceivably become a successful comedian independently of Raya, or Tip independently of Col, but it would not be the same. Tip and Col, Martes and Trece, and Cruz and Raya are products, and their members are non-isolable factors of production. Now, I will set out the essential principle, or the economic law of tendency, which explains or determines the value, the market price, which tends to be established for the factors of production. I will show that, without anyone's direction from above, without any order from a government department or planning agency, nor any decree, an extremely powerful force exists in the market and is driven by the entrepreneurship of each and every one of the participants. That is, the billions of men and women who make up the economy. And this force determines that each person, each factor of production, tends to be paid the value of the contribution that factor makes to the production process. I repeat, we will arrive at the conclusion that in the market, each of us tends to be paid the value of what we contribute to the process of production. That is an inexorable law of tendency, which rests on the force of the entrepreneurship of all the participants in the market, and I will explain and demonstrate this law. It should be a source of satisfaction for everyone, because we will conclude that the more we contribute to the production process, the greater the value of what we contribute to the process of social cooperation, the more we will be paid. That is the law of tendency. So, before we go into detail, if I want to get a job, what should I do? I should never ask how much the job pays. I should arrive at the interview and say, "Mr. or Mrs. Interviewer, I have come to this company with just one goal in mind, to do everything I can to solve problems for you and make your life easier. I plan to contribute all my effort to achieving this company's objectives. In other words, I am here to give something to this company, and I am not worried at all about what you are going to pay me, because you will see the contribution I am going to make, and you will pay me what I am worth." Granted, when employees start at a company, they are pretty clueless. They have very little experience, knowledge, and practice. For the first few months, it would almost make more sense for employees to pay the company, since time is spent teaching them, etc. But that is an investment a company makes in its employees. And if we are enthusiastic people who consider it a privilege to be able to work, and we are willing to give our all and to contribute to a company, then as we give more and more, we will see that, in one way or another, we are promoted and our pay increases. This is true on an individual level, and it is especially so on a social level. Today, I am going to explain this principle by examining the process that takes place. The essential principle is as follows. When a factor of production is isolable, like any one of us who does not work with a partner, as Tip and Cole did, when a factor is isolable and non-specific, and thus we are useful in different lines of production, we are versatile, the market price of that factor's services tends, since all economic laws are laws of tendency, ceteris paribus, other things being equal, the price of its services tends to be equal to what we will call the discounted marginal value product. I will explain the term discounted marginal value product in greater detail in a moment, but it consists precisely of the value of our contribution to the process of production. To understand the discounted marginal value product, we will go step by step, and we will begin with the first. The first step is to understand what is meant by the term marginal physical product. The marginal physical product, MPP, is the additional quantity of a final consumer good that one additional or marginal unit of a productive factor makes it possible to generate. Imagine that 19 hours of a shoemaker's labor permit the production of 40 pairs of shoes. Now, imagine that one additional or marginal hour, instead of 19 hours, 20 hours, will enable us to produce 42 pairs of shoes. The marginal physical product in this particular example is 2 pairs of shoes. One marginal or additional hour, at the margin, permits us to produce 2 more pairs of shoes. That is the concept of the marginal physical product, the additional quantity of a final consumer good which one marginal unit of a factor of production makes it possible to generate, provided that the other factors of production remain constant, ceteris paribus, all other things being equal. We have already established that many factors play a part in the production process, but to determine the price of just one factor of production, we must imagine that the rest remain constant. The electricity, the facilities, the machine used to sew the shoes. It is only when we are considering how the market determines the price of an hour of the shoemaker's labor that we ask ourselves the question, if everything remains the same, but we add one more hour, what will the result be in terms of the final consumer good? If our answer is 2 more pairs of shoes, then that would be the marginal physical product in our example. The marginal physical product reflects the law of diminishing returns. This law states that if we have a fixed factor and a variable factor, and the variable factor gradually increases in units, then production will initially rise more than proportionally. However, there will come a point at which subsequent rises in production will be smaller and smaller. In other words, if we continue to add units, more hours of labor, although the result will certainly be greater in terms of the final consumer good, the increase in the volume of output will reach a point at which it becomes smaller and smaller. In graphical terms, though I do not like to use graphs, the curve will change from concave to convex, but we can demonstrate in strictly praxeological terms why this must be so. Now we are ready to take another step. I have explained the concept of the marginal physical product, and now we can move forward. Our second step is to understand the concept of the marginal value product. It is quite simple. The marginal value product is equal to the marginal physical product multiplied by the expected market price. If in our example, the marginal physical product is 2 pairs of shoes, what is the marginal value product? Well, if each pair of shoes is going to be priced at 50 euros, the marginal value product would be 2 for the pairs of shoes times 50, or 100 euros. In other words, this is the same idea as before, but in terms of market prices. And now we come to the third step, understanding the discounted marginal value product. Listen, the problem is that the marginal value product is not obtained now, when I am providing my services as a shoemaker. Instead, it is obtained at the end of the production process in which I take part, along with other productive factors. This process could perhaps take 6 months or a year to mature or culminate in the new shoes. So, in a year, when the production process concludes and the shoes have been produced, those 2 pairs of shoes can be sold at €50, 100 euros in a year. But the worker must be paid today, since workers are paid daily or weekly, or, as is usual, monthly. We are paid once a month for our contribution to the current production process, regardless of whether it will culminate in final consumer goods within 6 months, a year, or a year and a half. We must be paid today an amount which will only be available in a more or less distant future, let us say 1 year, to simplify the example. And as you know, the logical category of time preference is an essential principle of the production process, and inseparably linked to our human nature. According to this principle, other things being equal, human beings value the present more than the future, and as a result, a market price for present goods in terms of future goods tends to be set, and we call this price the interest rate. So, we know that if the interest rate is 10%, 100 units today will be worth 110 in 1 year. And likewise, 100 units in 1 year are today worth 100 discounted by the interest rate, so minus 10%, around 90. Since the worker must be paid today, the value of his contribution to a production process that will conclude only in a distant future, for instance, in 1 year, we must discount by the interest rate the marginal value product that will follow from the worker's contribution to the production process today, a process that will culminate only at the end of 1 year in a final consumer good which can be sold. Therefore, the amount paid to any factor of production is known as the discounted, by the interest rate, marginal value product, the value today of the present contribution of an additional unit of productive factor to the generation of a final consumer good that will be finished only after a period of time, for instance, 1 year. So, in our example, the interest rate is 10%. The marginal physical product is 2 pairs of shoes, and the corresponding marginal value product, when we sell the shoes in 1 year at €50 a pair, is 100 euros, and the corresponding marginal value product, when we sell the shoes in 1 year at €50 a pair, is 100 euros. But we must pay the worker today, and 100 euros in 1 year's time at 10% interest is worth 90 euros today. According to the law, we will tend to pay the worker, in our example, a worker specialized in the production of shoes, 90 euros. In other words, there is an inexorable law in the market which says that each of us is paid the value of our contribution, but today, that is the value, discounted by the interest rate, of the contribution we make in the form of a final consumer good that will be available only once it has been completed in a more or less distant future. What if the factors are non-isolable, like tip and coll, or cruse and raya? Well, the same law applies, but to both members jointly, as a single factor. Tip and coll, cruse and raya, or martes and trece. They jointly receive their discounted marginal value product. Someone might ask, well, how much goes to cruse and how much goes to raya? Listen, economic theory has nothing to say about that. They will enter into a contract for the pair or group of non-isolable members, and then they will have to reach an agreement between themselves. Maybe they will split the money down the middle, or maybe not, because one of them is pushier and keeps 2/3 of it for himself and forces the other to agree. What if, in the production process, there are several non-specific factors, and only one specific factor, which is useful solely in that particular line of production? The law we have explained applies to non-specific factors, versatile ones, those which can be put to several different uses. These factors tend to be paid their discounted marginal value product. Then the residual value is paid to the purely specific factor.